Hi everyone, good evening po. Welcome to the seventh and last session of the Professional Forester's Licensure Exam peer review under the Upstep Review Caravan 2026. We are so happy that you could join us this evening. Welcome po. And welcome back for those of you who joined us earlier sa ating sixth session. So kanina ay meron po tayong viewers from Marawi, from Bacolod Mountain Province, and may viewer din tayo from Western Visayas State University. So ngayon ay curious din kami kung taga saan naman kaya ang ating participants this evening. So comment lang po kayo kung taga saan po kayo or kung saan pa po kayo nanonood. Ayan. So nandyan pa rin kaya ang ating viewers earlier or may new faces ba? Let us know in the chat box or in the comment section. Ayun. So last pre-session na natin to for PFLE guys. Huwag na po kayo mahiya. Comment lang kayo. Nahihiya talaga sila or baka delayed lang ulit ang ating live stream, that's okay. Pwede niyo po pong ihabol ang inyong comments. Babasahin pa rin po namin yan even after the session. So, sana ay ready na ulit makinig at mag-participate sa ating lecture tonight. But before we proceed, don't forget to register to our free review sessions to stay updated on upcoming topics. You may also enroll in our review programs for a more comprehensive and guided preparation. So meron po kaming online and meron ding self-paced review programs for you guys. And you can scan the QR code if you would like to join us. So for today's session, we will be learning about range management. And again, it is my pleasure to introduce our lecturer for tonight. She graduated Bachelor of Science in Forestry from UPLB. She worked as a University Research Associate 1 at the University of the Philippines Land Grant Management Office and is now working as a Project Technical Assistant 3 at the UPLB College of Forestry and Natural Resources. She is also a research contributor at the Biodiversity Mainstreaming with ASEAN Center for Biodiversity and FAO. Let's all welcome and give a virtual round of applause to Miss Irish Valerie Hecolea. Good evening po.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Miss Crizel. Thank you po for introducing me. So, I think we can start now with our lecture. Ano po? So, good evening, everyone. My name is Irish Valerie and Hecolea, and I am thrilled to be here in this online space to be the lecturer for the free review. So, tonight po, we're kicking off a very important topic under the umbrella of forest production and management, which is yung range management. So without further ado po, so let us now start. So yung lecture po natin today will focus on 6 primary areas. So we have range management, grassland ecology, types of grassland, management and grazing, succession, and problem solving. So before po tayo mag-start, no, let me quickly run through lang how our review will work today. So first po, I will flash some question to the screen, and the moment the question starts, a 30 seconds timer will appear on the lower right part of the screen. So you will have exactly 30 seconds po para mag-answer. So if you are here with us in Google Meet, so you can type your answer in the in-call chat. And while yung mga nasa Facebook Live naman po, you may drop your choice right in the comment section po. So once the 30 seconds are up po, I will reveal the correct answer, and more importantly po, I will break down why it is the correct answer. So maging familiar po tayo dun sa concept. Napili ko po yung ganitong fast-paced format po to trigger yung active recall, no? Instead na nakikinig lang tayo sa lecture ko, I think it will be best po to force our brain to search for the answer under a bit of a time pressure po para ma-strengthen yung memory. And syempre, ma-practice na rin po yung test-taking speed during the actual board exam. So, a quick reminder sa ating Facebook viewers, if you have any question or need clarification lang po during the stream, please type them down in the comment section. So, I won't be able to supervise po yung Facebook Live comments in real time because I will be focusing dun sa slides and magkakaroon po ng kaunting delay. However po, don't worry, I will personally go through the question po, and if meron, and magre-reply po ako via the FB comment section right after the live session ends. Okay po, so ayun. So So for our initial topic po, magfo-focus tayo sa general concept ng range management. Okay po? We will start na dun sa first question. So here is our first question. Which of the following best defines range management? A, the crops for commercial production. B, the sustainable management of rangelands to provide multiple goods and services. C, the conservation of forests solely for wildlife. And D, the artificial establishment of pasture grasses. Okay, so may nag-answer po sa ating Google Meet, letter B. Tingnan po natin sa next slide kung ano yung tamang sagot. Okay po, so the correct answer is letter B. May nagsagot din po sa ating Facebook Live. So range management is the sustainable management of rangelands to provide multiple goods and services. So let us define range management po sa ating next slide. So range management refers to the sustainable use of rangelands and their resources, primarily emphasizing livestock grazing, but also encompasses watershed protection, wildlife habitat, recreation, and aesthetic values. So range management aims to optimize its provision of multiple goods and services through the regulation of rangeland functions. So range management is essentially the use of rangelands and their natural resources in a sustainable manner. So emphasis po sa sustainable manner, meaning that it should satisfy the current needs without harming the ability of future users to benefits. Okay, so pumunta na po tayo sa ating second question. Question number 2. Which is not one of the primary objectives of range management? A. Livestock production. B. Watershed protection. C. Recreation. Or D. Urban development. So this is connected po with the definition of range management that we discussed from our last slide. Okay, time's up na po. Tingnan natin sa next slide ang answer. Okay po. So the answer is letter D. So urban development is not one of the primary objectives of range management. So balikan natin yung ating definition ng range management para malaman bakit nga ba ito yung naging sagot. So in range management, it is important to recognize livestock grazing as a major use but not the only use. So, kung tututok lang tayo sa livestock, magdudulot ito ng overgrazing. So, we should also look at the inclusion and functions of other values such as watershed protection dahil rangelands ay common na catchment areas. Wildlife habitat, since hindi lamang para sa livestock but also as a biodiversity hotspot sa iba pang species, recreation and aesthetic values na pwedeng gamitin for recreational uses. So, ang main goal po ng range management is to optimize the goods and services that rangeland provides. So, ang main goal ay hindi maximization kung hindi optimization. So, balikan natin yung question, bakit hindi urban development? So, ang core ng range management is pagpapanatili ng natural na halaman and health ng soil dun sa area. So, kapag pumasok na po yung urban development, specifically yung land conversion, ay magiging irreversible na po yung changes sa natural ecosystem ng rangelands. Okay. So, it's nice naman po to see na meron tayong mga nagpa-participate sa ating Facebook Live. Okay. So, next question na po tayo. Rangelands are best described as A. Cultivated grazing lands enclosed by fences. B. Natural or semi-natural lands capable of supporting grazing and browsing. C. Irrigated agricultural lands. Or D. Forest plantations for timber production. Okay, so nag-answer si Miss Etchelyn ng letter B. Let's see sa next slide kung anong tamang sagot. And the answer po is rangelands are best described as letter B, natural or semi-natural lands capable of supporting grazing and browsing. So let's discuss nga po sa next slide, ano nga po ba ang rangelands? So, ang rangeland po ay isang malawak na umbrella term. Ito ay tumutukoy sa anumang uncultivated terrestrial ecosystem na kayang sumuport sa grazing at browsing. So, this includes grasslands, shrublands, woodlands, wetlands, and savannas. So, we put emphasis sa uncultivated sa rangeland. So, bakit nga po ba? So, dahil ang ecosystem nito ay natural na gumagana, so kapag na-cultivate na ito like yung ginawang cropland, ay mawawala na yung natural biodiversity and maiiba na po yung capacity nito to recover. Okay. Mag-move on na po tayo sa next question. Pasture lands differ from rangelands because they are A. Dominated by native vegetation. B. Actively managed for forage production. C. Protected from livestock. Or D. Naturally occurring ecosystems. Okay, time's up po. And the answer po is, yes, correct po, Miss Echeline. The correct answer is letter B. Pasture lands differ because they are actively managed for forage production. So here we have yung definition ng pasture land, which is commonly napagpapalit yung term na ito with rangeland. So pasture land is defined as the grazing area that is physically enclosed and segregated from surrounding land by fencing or other barriers, and is primarily managed for the production of forage to be utilized through grazing. Excuse me lang po. So kung ang rangeland ay natural ecosystem, ang pasture land naman yung managed version nito. So may physical enclosure ang livestock, meaning hindi sila free roaming unlike po sa rangeland. So, sinesegregate din ang wilder areas para masiguradong ang focus ay sa forage production. So, bakit nga po ba sinesegregate ang pasture land? So ito po ay upang makontrol yung species selection, grazing intensity, and yung input. Okay po. So, we have here question number 5. Which characteristic is most associated with rangelands? A. High fertilizer inputs. B. Intensive irrigation. C. Native vegetation with minimal management. Or D. Improved forage varieties. Okay po, time's up. So, may nagsagot sa atin Gmit ng letter C. So, the answer po is letter C. Native vegetation with minimal management is a characteristic which is most associated with rangelands. So, here po, meron tayong table showing the key difference ng rangeland and pasture land. So, rangeland is defined as a natural or semi-natural land dominated by native vegetation. So, the lifeblood of this area comes from indigenous grasses, shrubs, and forbs. Pasture land, on the other hand, is a managed land specifically cultivated for livestock grazing. So, unlike sa rangeland, it relies on introduced or improved grasses and legumes to sustain the animals. So, in terms of management level, rangeland requires low input and minimal human intervention. In contrast naman po, pasture land is actively managed, requiring high input to maintain its quality. So, productivity in rangeland is generally lower and variable depending on the climate. So if kailangan mo ng mas mataas and more consistent productivity, that is the primary role of a pasture land. Grazing control is less stringent in a rangeland environment. However po sa pasture land naman, grazing is more controlled to maximize forage utilization. So examples of rangeland environments include grasslands, woodlands, and shrublands. Meanwhile naman po, you may identify a pasture land by its improved grass fields and planted forage areas. Okay, so let's move on to our next question po. So under Presidential Decree number 705, grazing land refers to A. Privately owned pasture, B. Public land designated for livestock raising, C. Agricultural land planted with legumes, or D. Forest land reserved for timber production. Okay, so may nag-answer po ng letter B. So correct po, the answer is B. Grazing land refers to public land designated for livestock raising. Excuse me. So, let us now delve naman po into the concept of grazing land as defined by Presidential Decree number 705 o ang Revised Forestry Code. So, grazing lands are designated areas specifically chosen for their topography and vegetation, making them ideal for livestock raising. So, meron po dito angkop na slope consideration para hindi maging prone sa erosion dahil sa traffic ng livestock, and of course, yung vegetation ay dapat angkop sa nutrition ng mga livestock. So, nililinaw po ito dito sa Presidential Decree number 705 para siguraduhin na ang public forest lands na ginagamit para sa grazing ay hindi nakakasira sa ating watershed at forest cover. So, one notable example po ng grazing land is the Impasugong Communal Ranch located in Bukidnon. So, it is currently the only government-owned and managed ranch in the country. So, cattle from ground. So, example po ito ng communal resource management. Okay, question number 7 po. Which ecosystem is considered part of rangeland? A. Rice field, B. Wetland, C. Coconut plantation, or D po, mango orchard? Okay, so may nagsagot po sa Google Meet ng letter C. And ang correct answer po is letter B, wetlands. So, balikan natin yung ecological definition ng rangelands. So, rangelands are vast. Excuse me, sorry. Vast natural landscapes dominated by native or indigenous vegetation that are managed as natural ecosystems. So, yung wetlands are naturally occurring and have an cultivated ecosystem, and dahil nare-retain nila yung natural ecosystem nila, so they are fundamentally considered as part of rangelands. So the remaining 3 other choices naman po falls under the cultivated cropland po. So ayun, yung rice field, coconut plantation, and mango orchard. So for the next few questions naman po ay maggagaling ito doon sa table which we discussed earlier comparing rangeland with pasture land. So parang magiging recall na lang po ito So for question 8, which vegetation type is commonly associated with rangelands? A. Exotic ornamentals, B. Native grasses and shrubs, C. Fruit trees, or D. Annual vegetables? Okay, time's up po. May nagsagot ng letter D, native grasses and shrubs. And you are correct. The answer is letter B. So, native grasses and shrubs are the vegetation type which are commonly associated with rangelands. So, again, rangelands are natural ecosystem. So, since these areas are not generally managed, so the plants that thrive there must be naturally adapted to the local environment. Kaya it is important to highlight yung keyword na native. So, why are the other options incorrect po? So, all the other choices, aside from B, represent plants that are intentionally introduced or cultivated. So, yung exotic ornamentals, syempre they needed constant watering and human care. Yung fruit trees, of course, while they can grow in the wild, they still need intensive management and specific pacing. If we are going to talk about producing commercial crops. And then yung letter D naman, which is annual vegetables, they belong in croplands. Okay, so here's question 9. So, which statement about pasture land is true? So, A, it receives little management. B, it usually has lower productivity. C, it is managed primarily for livestock grazing. Or D, it consists entirely of native vegetation. Yan. You have 7 seconds po. Okay. So, Miss Etchelyn answered letter C via Gmeet chat. So, correct answer po natin is letter C. So, pasture land is managed primarily for livestock grazing. So, pasture land ay again specifically cleared, fenced, and dedicated to be optimized through grazing. So, kung babalikan po natin yung table na diniscuss natin earlier para malaman bakit mali yung other options. So, A is false or incorrect rather since pasture requires intensive management. So, time and money is invested in pasture land to keep the ecosystem productive. Yung B po is incorrect since pasture land has much higher productivity in comparison to rangeland dahil pasture land ay nakaka-receive ng human intervention to support the piece of land. And lastly naman po is yung letter D. It is incorrect since pastures is commonly seeded with introduced or domesticate or improved forage varieties katulad ng Bermuda and ryegrass which are pinili dahil kailangan nila ng high nutritional value at saka fast growing species. Okay po. I hope na hindi masyadong mabilis rather ang ating face. Okay, for question number 10. So, compared with pasture land, rangelands generally have A. Greater management intensity, B. Higher forage productivity, C. Less controlled grazing, or D. More fertilizer application. Alright, let's reveal po the correct answer. So, the correct answer po is C. Less controlled grazing ang rangeland. So, bakit nga po ba C yung sagot? So, because rangeland is much harder to control. So, rangelands are in much more massive scale and livestock are left to roam freely in comparison po sa pasture land wherein highly controlled yung animals sa pasture land po. So, isa-isahin ulit natin bakit naging incorrect yung ibang options. So, A, greater management intensity. So, rangelands again relies on intensive or low input management. Meanwhile naman po, yung pasture land needs intensive management including human intervention. So, incorrect din po yung letter B, higher forage productivity. So, since ang rangeland ay nagre-rely sa natural and unpredictable climate or weather, and of course, yung sa soil sa isang lugar, so they produce a much more lower volume of forage. And lastly naman po is yung letter D. So, more fertilizer application. So, ito ay economically near impossible dahil sa vast scope ng rangeland in comparison sa pasture land. So, ngayon po na we have already a preliminary understanding of range management. Let us turn our attention naman po sa grasslands. So, grasslands are a vital component of rangeland ecosystem characterized primarily by the dominance of grasses and non-woody plants. So, these environments play a crucial role in supporting biodiversity, providing habitat for various species, and serving as important resources for livestock grazing. So, understanding the dynamics of grasslands is essential for effective range management and environmental conservation. Okay po. So, pumunta na po tayo sa ating 11th question. So, question number 11. Which factor most contributes to soil erosion during intense rainfall? A. Climate, B. Livestock, C. Fire, or D. Succession? Alright, so time's up na po. And the correct answer po is letter A, climate. So let's discuss bakit ito yung correct answer sa ating next slide. So let us discuss how climate, specifically climate change, impacts grassland ecosystems. So first, i-consider po natin yung intensified rainfall. So this might sound beneficial, but it actually accelerates soil erosion. So when water runs off rather than infiltrates, so it carries away the topsoil. And as soil washes away, the stability of the grassland is compromised. So this is specifically bad in grasslands that have lost vegetative cover. Next scenario naman po natin is yung prolonged droughts and rising temperature. So it poses another challenge po sa grassland. So these conditions reduce vegetation health, which in turn strains water resources. As we all know po, some grass are more drought tolerant. So grass who can survive harsh conditions will dominate the ecosystem. However po, it may lower the productivity of the land and have poorer nutritional value. So overall po, climate, specifically climate change, affects grassland stability and resilience over time. So together, these factors undermines the resilience of the ecosystem. Okay, pumunta naman po tayo sa next question. So which component stores nutrients and water while supporting plant roots? So we have letter A, climate, B, soil, C, grazing, or D, rainfall. Okay, time's up po. And the answer po is letter B, soil. So soil is another factor that affects the grassland ecosystem. So let us now see naman po yung significant role that soil plays in shaping grassland ecosystem. So firstly po, yung properties of soil, such as texture and organic matter content, ito po ay fundamental to the ecosystem. So these characteristics govern carbon storage and water availability, both which are vital for promoting plant productivity in grasslands. So it is essential to emphasize the importance of these soil properties. So, ang mga grassland po na may favorable texture at high organic matter ay may mas stable moisture. So, moisture content sa kanilang soil. So, dahil dito, mas madali nilang nalalampasan ang mga dry spells. So, in contrast naman, grassland na nasa sandy soils at may low organic matter ay mas madaling maapektuhan or mas vulnerable sila sa stress. Okay. Question number 13. When properly managed, grazing primarily A. Eliminates biodiversity. B. Support grassland renewal. C. Prevents plant growth. Or D. Causes permanent degradation. So we have 11 seconds po to answer. Okay, so time's up po. And the correct answer po is letter B. Grazing primarily supports grassland renewal. So, let us talk naman po how foraging activities, specifically grazing, impacts grassland ecosystem. So, grazing is a natural process that can significantly alter vegetation structure. So, it affects soil properties and influences hydrological cycles, which are crucial for maintaining biodiversity. So, bakit natin sinasabi na ang grazing ay may epekto sa hydrological cycle? So, lahat po ay nakadepende sa vegetative cover. So, with good vegetative cover, soil infiltration is better because roots and litter will help the water penetrate the soil instead of running off. So, good vegetative cover also impacts the water holding capacity in grassland. So, when managed well, grazing can actually enhance the ecosystem. So, it supports renewal and provides valuable ecosystem services. So, ang sinasabi lang dito, with responsible management, grazing can be beneficial, helping these ecosystems thrive. However naman po, if grazing is not managed properly, it can lead to overgrazing. And dito pumapasok yung problema since overgrazing causes degradation. So, it strips the land of nutrients and undermines the stability of the grassland environment. So, ang key takeaway lang po here is yung balance. So, properly managed grazing supports a healthy ecosystem, but we must also be mindful of its potential to cause harm if it is not managed properly. Okay, next question po tayo. Question 14. Which process returns nutrients from dead organic matter back into the soil? A. Photosynthesis. B. Nutrient cycling. C. Evaporation. Or D. Nitrogen fixation. Alright. Ang correct answer po natin is letter B, nutrient cycling. So, let's discuss po. So, nutrient cycling is a fundamental process in grassland ecosystem as it ensures the movement and recycling of nutrients through the soil, plants, and organisms. So, let us take a closer look po on the figure to understand the nutrient cycling in grassland. So, nutrient cycling in grassland is primarily governed by plant, raising livestock, the decomposition process, loss of nutrients, and the eventual flow back of nutrients through soil. So, first in the process po is yung intake and storage phase. So, grass along with other vegetation absorbs carbon dioxide or CO2 from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. So after nito, ang mahanga halaman naman po ay kumukuha ng carbon, nitrogen at phosphorus mula sa soil. So parts of the carbons are then stored into the soil and yung mga plants itself. Ang role naman ng livestock is kinakain nila yung mga plant biomass kung saan pansamantalang nai-store yung mga nutrition sa kanilang katawan. So, yung mga nutrients ay inilalabas nila muli sa pamamagitan ng pagdumi at ihi na nagiging available ulit para sa halaman at microbiome. So, bilang side effect ng pagkain naman ng mga livestock, naglalabas din sila ng methane sa pamamagitan ng belching at mula sa kanilang feces na nag-aambag sa greenhouse gas emissions. Now, ano yung magiging role ng decomposition? So, sa decomposition, ang microbes naman yung nagbe-breakdown sa plant litter, roots, and animal waste. So, this process helps in releasing nutrients in forms that plants can reuse again. So, some of the carbon dioxide, however, ay muling nare-release sa atmosphere through the soil, from the soil rather, through soil respiration. So, pagkatapos po ng decomposition, ang nitrogen ay nagiging mas mobile o madaling makuha, kaya mas madali itong nawawala sa pamamagitan ng leaching. Nagkakaroon naman po ng phosphorus retention dahil na-absorb ito ng soil. So, further nutrient losses occur through several pathways including gas emissions, leaching, and erosions. So, the recycled nutrients stored in the soil are then used to restart the cycle once again. Okay. I hope that you guys na nag-take kayo ng notes since medyo mahaba and figure lang po yung present ko sa slide na ito. Okay. Question 15. The collective edible plant material available for livestock is called A. Browse, B. Forage, C. Herbage, or D. Biomass. Okay, time's up po. And the correct answer here is forage. So, tignan natin yung definition ng forage sa next slide. So, ito naman po yung other terms related sa foraging. So, we have forage. So, forage is defined as the collective browse and herbage produced within a defined rangeland or pasture land. So, it encompasses both perennial and seasonal growth that is suitable for animal consumption. So, ito yung kabuuang supply ng pagkain and magiging basehan gaano karaming livestock ang kayang suportahan ng isang land. Okay po. Let's proceed to the next question. Question 16. Browse refers to vegetation obtained mainly from A. Trees, shrubs, and vines, B. Mosses, C. Grasses, or D. Ferns. Alright, well, time's up. So, the correct answer is A. So, browse refers to vegetation obtained mainly from trees, shrubs, and vines. So, let us define naman po dito yung browse. Ito yung mga dahon, sanga, shrubs, vines, and parts of trees na pwedeng kainin ng mga hayop. So, ito yung nagsisilbing elevated o mataas na source ng pagkain na hindi abot ng karaniwang grazers. So, browsing is the process wherein kumakain at or above eye level yung mga livestock. So, grazers on the other hand feed at ground level. So, due to this, hindi nagiging direct ang competition ng grazers at browsers. So, we have here question 17. Which term describes the consumption of grasses directly in the field? A. Browsing, B. Grazing, C. Foraging, or D. Harvesting? Okay, time's up po. The correct answer po is grazing. So, it is described as the consumption of grasses directly in the field. So, grazing naman po refers to the in situ consumption of predominantly herbaceous vegetation found sa ground level as mentioned kanina. So, ito ay tinatawag na in situ dahil kinakain ng mga livestock or other yung mga halaman kung saan mismo sa lugar kung saan ito tumutubo. Alright. Question number 18. Herbage refers to A. Wood stems, B. Above ground herbaceous plant material, C. Tree bark, or D. Roots. Alright, time's up po. And the correct answer po is letter B. So, herbage refers to the above ground herbaceous plant material. So, again, herbage yung above ground material ng herbaceous plant. So, ito yung mga walang persistent woody stems and ground levels na kinakain ng mga grazers. So, ano po yung example ng mga ito? Ito yung mga grasses, forbs, and legumes. So, madalas na napagpapalit po yung term na herbage at forage. Again, herbage is yung kabuoang biomass ng isang halaman habang na andun pa to sa rangeland or overall vegetative growth, whether kainin man siya ng livestock or hindi. Yung forage naman po is yung herbage na kapag naging pagkain na siya ng mga livestock. So, example dito kapag kinolekta na siya ng mga nagmamanage nung isang land at pinakain na sa mga livestock katulad ng hay. Alright. Punta po tayo sa next question. Question 19. Which grass species is most common in Philippine grasslands? You have napier grass, B. Cogon, C. Bermuda grass, or D. Paragrass. Still have 12 seconds to answer. Alright, time's up. And the most common grass species rather in Philippine grassland is letter B. Cogon or Imperata cylindrica is the most common grass species in the Philippine grasslands. So, regarding naman po sa vegetation, here are the most dominant species found in the grasslands of the Philippines. So again, we have here Imperata cylindrica or also commonly known as cogon. So, this is the most common grass species found in Philippine rangeland. So, dahil sa rhizomatous root system nito, meaning ay they grow sideways underground, napakahirap nitong ubusin at madalas ito yung nagiging nagdo-dominate sa isang area and nalilimitahan sa diversity ang ibang halaman. Next naman po, we have here Temeda triandra or bagokbok. So, it is present across low to mid elevation areas across Luzon and some parts in Mindanao. So, it is an important species dahil kung na-consider itong climax species, meaning that they are a stable species sa rangeland and important ito in maintaining its soil stability. Third naman po, we've got Capilipedium parviflorum. So this is a perennial grass that grows on the grassy slopes of Luzon. So dahil sa kanyang growth habit, malaki ang tulong nito sa pag-prevent ng soil erosion sa mga lugar na madaling gumuho or magkaroon ng soil erosion nga. So dahil natubo siya sa mga lugar na walang masyadong human activity, ang yung Capilipedium parviflorum ay nag-i-indicate ng undisturbed pa ang ecosystem sa isang lugar. Lastly naman po, we have Chrysophogon aciculatus, or Amor seco. So I am pretty sure na familiar po ang lahat dito. So ito yung grass that have fruiting spikelets na medyo matalas, tapos kapag napa napadikit tayo dun ay nakapit yung mga spikelets na yun sa ating damit. Alright. So here's our next question na po. So, which animal is least commonly associated with Philippine grassland grazing? A. Goat, B. Horse, C. Carabao, or D. Pig? Ayun, so I think this one is obvious naman po. Ano po? The answer po is letter D. So, pig. It is the least common associated with Philippine grassland grazing. So, ito po yung most common livestock in the Philippines. So, first we have here yung cattle. So, sila ang ating primary grazers na madalas makita. So, they often graze on mix of grasses, crop residues, and of course, yung legume leaves. So, since malaki yung mga cattle, they need wider expanses para hindi ma-overgraze ang isang area. Second naman po, we have the carabao, which is also known as the Philippine water buffalo. So, farmers often use pasture grazing or zero grazing when feeding them. We also have goats. However po today, most goats are raised on backyard or smallholder farms. Goat grazing should be managed well since it can lead to overgrazing, given that goats can also overgraze over woody vegetation such as shrub and trees. Another livestock use naman po is ng smallholder farmers is yung sheep. So it is a good option for them because they need less space and less feed per unit. And of course, lastly is yung horses. So, one challenge, however, for horse owners, specifically po yung upland farmers, is the limitation of full pastures and high-quality forage. So, in their administrative order number 9-93, stated doon na ang ratio ng horse with grazing land should be at least 1 horse per hectare. However, since limited nga lang ang grazing land and resources, horses are often grazed with only whatever vegetation is available sa atin. So, each type of livestock interacts uniquely with the grasslands. So, for instances po, cattle and carabaos are often used in large expanses due to their size and grazing habits, while goats and sheep naman po can be more on selective grazers, often helping to manage vegetation more precisely. Okay. Now, andito na po agad tayo sa ating third section, which will focus on the types of grasslands. For our first question in this section, question 21. Natural grasslands develop primarily because of A. Heavy fertilizer application, B. Extreme environmental conditions, C. Irrigation, or D. Continuous reseeding. Okay, so time's up po. And the correct answer po is letter B. So natural grasslands develop primarily because of extreme environmental conditions. So natural grasslands develop under extreme environmental conditions where climate, soil, and topography limit other vegetation types. So let us put an emphasis po on natural. So meaning they are shaped largely by climate, soil, and topography, and hindi po yung anthropogenic activities na nakaka-apekto sa kanila. So these grasslands are often found in alpine regions or on steep nutrient-poor soils. So, an example po of natural grassland can be found on Mount Pulag. So, located sila sa boundary of Mount Pulag's mossy forest. And as we all know, the high altitude and cooler temperature of Mount Pulag restricts the growth of other vegetation. So, this puts an emphasis po that natural grasslands can survive harsh environment. Okay, for our next question. Semi-natural grasslands depend mainly on A. High input farming, B. Disturbance and low intensity land use, C. Urbanization, or letter D. Complete forest protection. Alright, time's up po. And the answer po is letter B. So, semi-natural grasslands depend mainly on disturbance and low intensity land use. So, let's discuss it on the next slide. So, semi-natural grassland is formed as a result from a blend of natural processes and human activities. So, the key characteristic of semi-natural grasslands is their dependence on disturbance. So, this means that they emerge from the interaction of low-intensity human land use like traditional farming and natural ecological processes, unlike yung sa mga natural grasslands. So, imagine nyo yung mountainside where people long ago cleared some patches of forest, or maybe they burned them periodically to let grazing animal and then they let grazing animals wander there, but didn't plant grass or heavily fertilize. So, of course, after some time, wild grasses may dominate it over time, and that becomes a semi-natural grassland. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Pasture land is primarily intended for A. Timber production, B. Livestock grazing, C. Wildlife preservation only, or D. Crop production. Alright, so time's up na po. The correct answer is letter B. Pasture land is primarily intended for livestock grazing. So, pasture land is specifically designated for livestock grazing. So, it is not just limited to natural meadows. It includes yung irrigated pastures, forest clearing, as well as upland rangelands found in plains and prairies. So, one key point to remember is this land is managed for the purpose of supporting livestock. So, meaning it is not just wild grassland there, but there should be some level of management involved like yung grazing rotation, pag-aayos ng soil fertility dun sa land, and controlling yung mga invasive species. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Question 24. Improved permanent grasslands are characterized by A. Low productivity, B. No fertilizer application, C. Drainage, reseeding, and fertilization, or D. Complete natural succession. Alright po, time's up. The correct answer is letter C. Improved permanent grasslands are characterized by drainage, reseeding, and fertilization. So, improved permanent grassland naman po is an excellent example of how human intervention can enhance natural ecosystems. So, these grasslands are modified through careful management practices such as yung drainage para of course maiwasan ng ma-waterlog ang lupa and reseeding ng higher quality na uri ng grass to make them highly productive. So, ang key point here is the use of high fertilizer inputs, which significantly boosts productivity. So, this allows these grasslands to support dense population of livestock through sa pagpapabilis ng pagrami ng biomass o pagtubo ng damo. Okay, question number 25. Which grassland type generally supports the highest livestock density? A. Natural grassland. B. Semi-natural grassland. C. Improved permanent grassland. Or D. Shrubland. Okay, time's up po. The correct answer is letter C. So, improved permanent grassland generally supports the highest livestock density. Okay po. So, ngayon naman po, pumunta naman tayo sa management and grazing since nagkaroon na tayo ng understanding sa range management. So, question number 26. So, why are legumes integrated into grasslands? A. To increase soil acidity. B. To improve nitrogen availability. C. To reduce biodiversity. Or D. To prevent grazing. Alright, time's up po. And the correct answer po is letter B. So, legumes are integrated into grasslands to improve nitrogen availability. So, the integration of leguminous forage with grass have shown higher above-ground productivity, which is crucial for both economic and environmental reasons. So, it is essential po to note that soils in grasslands are typically acidic and lacks phosphorus. So, this presents a challenge but also po an opportunity for improvement para sa land. So, one effective method to enhance soil productivity is the introduction of legumes. So, legumes have the ability to fix nitrogen enriching the soil naturally. So, sa Pilipinas po, ang pinaka-common na legumes na isinasama natin sa ating mga forage grasses ay ang ipil-ipil, kakawate, and yung kalyandra. So, sa Philippines, animals feed mostly on forage grass during wet seasons as it thrives best during this season. However naman po, during the dry season, leguminous plants can be an alternative source of high-quality proteins and energy. So, this is because they can withstand harsh climatic conditions while maintaining high nutrient content. Secondly naman po, this combination enhances shoot nitrogen uptake. So, by improving nitrogen uptake, we reduce the need for chemical fertilizers, promoting a more sustainable approach to grassland management. Okay, so we have here question number 27. Rotational grazing mainly allows A. Continuous grazing, B. Vegetation recovery, C. Permanent livestock confinement, or D. Soil removal. The right time's up po. And the correct answer po is letter B. Rotational grazing allows vegetation recovery. So there are two primary methods commonly used or commonly being implemented under sustainable grazing. So the first is known as timely or rotational grazing. So dito po hinahati ang lupa sa maliliit na paddocks gamit ang fencing system. So yung livestock nag-graze sila sa isang paddock for a set of time. Then after grazing, the paddock is left to rest allowing grass to regrow. So importante yung rest period na strategy para makapag-regrow yung grass without intervention. So After that, animals are then moved to the next product and the cycle repeats. So, sa Philippine Carabao Center po, they implement rotational grazing. So, they utilize 66 products for their dairy buffaloes. So, after grazing for 4 hours, the animals are then moved to a new paddock the next day to allow the previous areas to rest and regenerate. Okay, so for our next question, integrated crop livestock systems improve sustainability primarily through A. Increased pesticide use, B. Nutrient cycling, C. Eliminating livestock, or D. Reducing crop diversity. Okay po, time's up. So, integrated crop livestock systems improve sustainability primarily through letter B, nutrient cycling. So, after timely or rotational grazing, the second most common known type of sustainable grazing naman po is the ICLS. So, Integrated Crop Livestock Systems or ICLS is a blend of crop and livestock production that supports both in a sustainable cycle. So, sa system po na to, recycling nutrients and energy becomes a natural loop, enhancing sustainability and cutting down the need for mineral fertilizers. So, in ICLS, as the name suggests, ay mayroong crops and livestock. So, yung manure from livestock is used as organic fertilizers from crop, while yung crop residues naman po will serve as feed for the livestock. Okay, for our next question. Question 29. Deferred grazing means A. Grazing before range readiness. B. Delaying grazing until plants reach a desired stage. C. Permanent livestock confinement. Or D. Grazing only during drought. We still have 8 seconds po. Okay, time's up po. So, the correct answer po is letter B. Deferred grazing means delaying grazing until plants reach a desired stage. So, let us move on naman po on to the other types of grazing. So, deferred grazing is a strategic approach where certain areas of pastures are allowed to grow until they reach a specific stage of maturity before being grazed. So, a designated paddock or section of pasture is left ungrazed for a set of period of time until it reaches the optimal time for grazing. Once the vegetation has reached the desired growth stage, livestock are then introduced to the area. Okay, let's move to question number 30. Premature grazing occurs when livestock graze. A. After seed production. B. Before range readiness. C. During plant dormancy only. Or D. After fertilization. Alright, time's up na po. The answer po is letter B. So, premature grazing occurs when livestock graze before range readiness. So, let us now focus naman po on premature grazing. So, this is a system where grazing occurs before the range is fully ready. So, it is important to note that this method should be used sparingly. So, may mga risk po ito tulad ng hindi makaka-recover ang energy sa root reserves na pwedeng ikawikin ng halaman. Again, this approach should be used sparingly dahil pwede itong magresulta din sa pagkasira ng vegetation cover at pagdami ng mga less desirable or invasive species. So the key here po is balance. So while premature grazing can be part of a strategy, it must always be followed by a period of adequate recovery for the vegetation. So para ma-ensure po that the ecosystem remains healthy and resilient. Okay, for our question number 31. So, zero grazing involves A. No livestock feeding. B. Cutting forage and carrying it to animals. C. Grazing only at night. Or D. Continuous grazing. Okay, time's up po. The correct answer is letter B. Zero grazing involves letter B, cutting forage and carrying it to animals. So, soiling or zero grazing is a grazing system where where the herbage from a specific area is cut and carried to the animals rather than allowing them to graze freely. So, bakit mo po ba ginagamit pa itong method na to? So, well, it provides several benefits. First, it allows for precise control over the animal's diet, ensuring that they receive the best nutritional value from the herbage. Additionally po, it helps in protecting the grazing land from being overused. Kasi hindi nagda-directly graze yung mga animals on it. However po, ang isa lang na hindi naman negative, cons ng types of grazing na ito is this can be labor intensive and this may directly affect po yung natural grazing behaviors ng mga animals. Okay. Question number 32. Which grass is the most widely used improved pasture species in the Philippines? A. Cogon, B. Napier grass, C. Bermuda grass, or D. Guinea grass? Okay, 5 seconds left. All right. So, Napier grass is the most widely used improved pasture species in the Philippines. So, tingnan natin. Let's discuss it further on the next slide. So, another management strategy po on the protection of grassland is the introduction of improved tropical grass species. So, Napier grass is the most popular improved pasture species in the Philippines. So, it is favored to be used due to its high yield and adaptability to various environmental conditions. So, its rapid growth and dense clumping habit also allow it to outcompete many weed species. So, yung makapal po na kumpol na napier grass ay nagsisilbi ring protection sa lupa laban sa soil erosion, specifically dun sa mga bahagi na mayroong medium sloping. Alright po, let's move on to our next question. Question number 33. So, one benefit of prescribed burning is A. Increase weed competition, B. Improve forage quality, C. Soil sterilization, or D. Elimination of wildlife habitat. Okay, time's up na po. And the correct answer is letter B. So, improved forage quality ay isa sa mga benefit ng prescribed burning. So, let us see po sa next slide kung bakit naging benefit ito. So, prescribed burning presents certain ecological benefits, but it remains a subject of debate due to various concerns. So, prescribed burning, also known as controlled or planned burning, is the intentional application of fire under specific environmental conditions to achieve land management objectives. So, in grasslands po, the benefit includes enhanced forage quality and availability. Since nababurn yung old and dead plant material, napopromote naman po yung growth ng fresh vegetation for livestock. So, it can also reduce po yung fuel loads dun sa area, meaning yung amount ng combustible material that causes unintentional wildfire ay madedecrease due to the elimination of excess plant materials. So, the fire can also control or suppress competing weeds that threatens the native grassland ecosystem. So, that's why naging ganun po ang ating answer. Okay, so number 34. So, overgrazing usually results in A. Improved biodiversity, B. Increased forage production, C. Grassland degradation, or D. Soil stabilization. Okay po, and the correct answer is letter C. So, overgrazing may result in grassland degradation. Again, uulitin po natin yung foraging activities, specifically grazing, how it impacts the grassland ecosystem. So, again, grazing is a natural process that can significantly alter vegetation structure as it affects soil properties and influences hydrological cycles which are crucial for maintaining biodiversities. Okay. Next question po. Question number 35. So, which grazing system best promotes long-term grassland sustainability? A. Continuous overgrazing, B. Rotational grazing, C. Premature grazing, or D. Overstocking. Okay po, and the correct answer to this question is letter B, rotational grazing. So, as we discussed earlier po, rotational or timely grazing best promotes long-term grassland sustainability since nababalance niya yung need ng livestock with the needs of plants and nabibigyan din yung grassland ng time to regenerate. So, yung other options are not that sustainable for the grasslands. So, sa letter A, continuous overgrazing, mataas yung chances na maiwanan yung grassland in a bare soil or maiwanan yung patches ng unpalatable weeds for the livestock. Sa letter C naman, yung premature grazing. So, during the early growth phase ng grass, nagre-rely ito do sa stored root energy rather nila to grow. So, if nakakain yung grass ng too early, they cannot establish a strong root system. And yung growth nila ay maaaring maging stunted. Sa letter D naman, yung overstocking, ito naman ay nagkikater yung land ng more than its carrying capacity. So, meaning, mas madaling ma-deplete yung forage faster that it can grow and mataas yung chance na ma-strip yung land bare. Okay. Ngayon naman po, magfo-focus tayo yung mga question natin sa ecological succession. So, for our first question, primary succession begins on A. Existing grassland, B. Bare substrate without soil, C. Abandoned farmland, or D. Mature forest. Okay po, time's up po. So, primary succession begins on B. Bare substrate without soil. So, let's discuss yung primary section dun sa ating next slide. So, sa primary succession, dito nagsisimula po yung primary section sa bare substrate. So, ibig sabihin, nagsisimula ito sa mga lugar na lifeless or walang topsoil, like yung newly made island due to volcano eruption, places na nakakaranas ng glacier retreats, or place na batuhan. So, may mga pioneer species na nagko-colonize sa mga lugar na ito, like lichens, mosses, and bacteria. So, yung mga pioneer organisms na to ay nagkakaroon sila na, hindi nagkakaroon, nagpo-possess sila rather ng pambihirang desiccation tolerance na nagmi-mean na kaya nilang mabuhay sa matinding tagtuyot or walang tubig sa mahabang panahon. So, dahil dito, nagkakaroon ng process ng biochemical weathering wherein naglalabas yung mga pioneer organisms ng acid na nagpapakupas or nagdudurog do sa mga materials na present over time. So, habang namamatay po or nabubulok yung mga pioneer organisms na to, humahalo yung kanilang organic matter sa mga present materials sa lugar na siya naman yung bumubuo sa kauna-unahang layer ng soil. So, primary succession, yung consider na foundation po. Okay. So, let's move on to our next question. Dito naman, secondary succession follows. A, volcanic lava without soil. B, disturbance of an existing community. C, ocean formation. Or D, glacier movement. Okay po, time's up na. And the correct answer is letter B. So, secondary succession follows. B, disturbance of an existing community. Sa next slide, i-discuss naman natin yung secondary succession. So, secondary succession describes the successional dynamics triggered by a significant anthropogenic or natural disturbance to a previously established climax or subclimax community. So, dito po, nagsisimula pa lang bumangon yung ecosystem after ng malaking disturbance. Again, katulad ng mga nabanggit kanina, bagyo, sunog, pagbaha, or any anthropogenic activities like overgrazing or deforestation. So, ano yung pinagkaiba niya sa primary succession? So, unlike sa primary succession, meron ng soil profile at seed bank sa secondary succession. So, dahil may seed bank na at dormant roots, ay agad na mabilis nang makapagsimula na sumibol ulit na napapadali yung pagbalik ng vegetation sa isang area. So, nangyayari sa phase na ito yung successional dynamics. So, yung mga pioneer species, specifically yung mga pioneer grasses, habang tumatagal, unti-unti na sila napapalitan ng mga mas malalaki at saka yung matitibay na species until yung ecosystem ay makabalik na sa kanilang climax or subclimax state. Okay. Dahil na-discuss na natin secondary succession, let's move on to our next question. Question 38. Progressive succession generally leads to A, greater ecosystem complexity, B, ecosystem simplification, C, soil loss, or D, reduced biodiversity. Okay po, time's up na. So the answer po is letter A. So progressive succession generally leads to A, greater ecosystem complexity. So let's discuss it po. So, progressive succession is characterized as the internal evolution of an ecosystem where the plants and animal themselves change the environment, making it more hospitable for even more diverse life. So, dito po nagkakaroon na ng biotic modification. So, ito ay dahil sa mga halaman na nakakapagpabuti sa aeration at water infiltration ng soil sa isang lugar. So, yung mga organic matter, nakakadagdag ng nutrients sa lupa. So, through this, nagkakaroon ng facilitation for more species na ma-accommodate sila or mabuhay in a more thriving environment. So, habang mas nagiging diverse sa mga plant species, of course, sumusunod naman dito yung pagka-diversify pa ng ibang species katulad ng sa mga animals. Next po. Question 39. Retrogressive succession results in A. Increased productivity, B. Ecosystem simplification, C. Climax vegetation, or D. Stable biodiversity. Okay po, time's up na. So, correct answer po here sa question na to is letter B. Retrogressive succession results in ecosystem simplification. So, here we have naman po yung retrogressive succession na dapat iwasan dahil nakakasira ito sa isang ecosystem or sa rangeland. So, sa retrogressive succession po, ito naman yung opposite ng progressive succession. So, dito, after ng isang disturbance, so, imbis po na makarecover at maging complex ang ecosystem, ay lalo pa itong nagde-decline. So, nagkakaroon ng decline dahil nawawala na ng structural complexity sa biodiversity. So, after ng disturbance, lalong bumababa yung capacity ng isang area to support life. So, dahil dito, hindi na nagiging productive para sa animals and other living organisms dun sa lugar. So, ano nga ba yung mga possible drivers ng retrogression? So, una, of course, anthropogenic pressure. So, most common na rito yung overgrazing. So, environmental degradation, nakakapagpabagod to ng sa nutrient cycling and hindi na nasusuportahan yung mga climax species kaya napapalitan na ito ng mga hardy species. So, dahil sa mga ito, nawawala na yung facilitation sa pagtubo ng magagandang species. So, imbis na katulad sa progressive succession, nagkakaroon pa ng downward spiral yung isang ecosystem or isang lugar. So, question number 40 po. So, which event commonly initiates secondary succession? A. Formation of new volcanic rock, B. Wildfire, C. Continental drift, or D. Ocean evaporation. You have 10 seconds po. Okay po. And the correct answer is letter B, wildfire. So this is the event that commonly initiates secondary succession. So wildfire yung class ecological disturbance na nakakapag-destroy ng standing vegetation pero nalilive niya yung soil completely intact, which is the defining requirements for secondary succession. So when a wildfire sweeps through a forest or sa grassland, nababurn away, of course, yung trees, brush, and of course, yung mga surface foliage. However, beneath naman nung sa ashes, yung soil, they remain full of nutrients, andun pa rin yung roots, organic matter, and of course, yung mga dormant na seeds. So, because yung soil is already present, yung pioneer species like yung mga opportunistic weeds ay kayang mag-sprout almost immediately and hindi na kailangang maghintay ng hundreds of years for the existing rocks to weather down. So, mas mabilis yung recovery process. Okay. So, i-breakdown natin yung sa mga ibang options or choices. So, bakit hindi yung letter A? So, formation of new volcanic rock. So, kapag nag-cool down na yung lava, they create a new rock. So there is absolutely no soil or organic matter na available. So life must start from zero. Therefore, this initiates a primary succession rather. Bakit incorrect yung letter C, continental drift? So, it alters global climates and species distribution over evolutionary time, but it does not initiate localized ecological succession. And lastly, bakit incorrect yung D, which is yung ocean evaporation? Sa ocean evaporation naman po natin, it is a continuous weather process and not an ecological disturbance that can reset a land ecosystem. So again po, tatandaan natin na kapag yung secondary succession, kailangan present po yung soil do sa ecosystem. Okay po, so andito naman po tayo sa problem solving section and we are down to our last 5 questions. So for this part po ay hindi ako magbibigay ng mga problems due to our limited time. However po, mapag-uusapan naman natin dito or mababanggit dito yung mga formulas and other related terms po sa problem solving. Okay. For our question number 41. So what does AU stand for? A, animal unit, B, animal utility, C, animal utilization, or D, area unit. Okay, last 5 seconds. Okay. So, AU stands for letter A, animal unit. So, before po tayo mag-dive sa mga formulas, we should first understand the concept of animal unit or yung AU, which is yung fundamental measurement in rangeland management. So, to visualize po easier, this is used as a standard measure of how much grass an animal needs to eat each day. So, bakit nga ba mahalaga yung animal unit? So, mahalaga ito upang malaman po yung total forage na need sa isang grazing place. So, may iwasan din po yung overstocking kasi alam mo kung ilan lang yung tamang pakain na kailangan ng isang livestock or animal. Okay, for question number 42. So, animal unit month or AUM refers to A, animal weight, B, monthly forage requirement of one animal unit, C, grazing capacity, or D, stocking density. You have 7 seconds left po. Alright, so the correct answer po is B. So, animal unit month or AUM refers to the monthly forage requirement of one animal unit. So, animal unit month or AUM represents the amount of dry forage that an animal unit or AU will consume over the course of a month. So, this is crucial for managing grazing and ensuring that there's enough forage to sustain livestock without depleting the resources. So, understanding AUM helps to calculate how much forage is needed, especially for those who are managing a herd or a farm. Okay po, for our next question. Question 43. So, grazing capacity is commonly expressed as A, kilogram per hectare, B, animal unit per hectare per year, C, tons per day, or D, kilogram per month. Okay po, time's up na. The correct answer is, okay, so grazing capacity is commonly expressed as animal unit per hectare per year. So let's define muna ano po yung grazing capacity. So grazing capacity is simply the amount of animals a pasture can support without sacrificing the condition of the land. So it tells us how many animal units or AU can graze on 1 hectare of land for 1 year. Kaya ina-express siya as animal unit per hectare per year. So, may mga ilang bagay pa rin tayong dapat kino-consider pagka nagko-compute ng grazing capacity. Of course, yung climate condition. Since mas mabilis tumubo yung mga damo kapag tag-ulan. And of course, yung forage quality na available. So, napag-aralan nga natin kanina na ang improved species like napier grass, nagpapataas siya ng grazing capacity sa isang land. Okay, next po. So proper use factor or PUF refers to A, total forage production, B, percentage of forage that can be safely utilized, C, annual rainfall, or D, animal weight. Okay po. So time's up. The correct answer is so proper use factor or PUF refers to the percentage of forage that can be safely utilized. So tingnan natin sa next slide yung formula for grazing capacity which involve yung PUF. So PUF or proper use factor is used in the formula of grazing capacity. So the proper use factor is the maximum percentage of plant's total annual growth that can be consumed or trampled by livestock without causing physiological harm to the plant and of course dun sa area. So traditionally po, PUF follows the take half, leave half rule. So in native rangelands, the PUF is typically set to 0.50 or 50%. Meaning po, yung 50% can be consumed while the other 50% naman po must be preserved. So, here po yung grazing capacity. It can be computed through the following formula shown on the screen. So, GC is equal to forage production divided by forage consumption, then multiply its quotient by the PUF po. So, ito na po tayo sa ating last question. So, which formula is used to compute animal unit month? A. AUM is equal to animal times unit times month. B. AUM is equal to forage times PUF. C. AUM is equal to FP times PUF. Or D. AUM is equal to weight times months. Okay po, times up na po. And the correct answer, obviously naman po, is letter A. AUM is equal to animal times unit times month. So, here po is how we calculate animal unit month or AUM using a simple formula. So, AUM is equal to A times U times M, wherein yung A po stands for the number of animals. So, we just have to count how many animals or livestock we have. Then U is the size of the animals or unit of animals. And remember po, not all animals eat the same amount po. And M naman po lastly is the number of months that the animal will graze. So we will just have to multiply these three together and we will get the AUM, which will tell us how much forage is required per month. And that brings us po to the end of our free review session for today. Big thank you po to everyone who joined us today, especially po yung mga nasa Facebook Live na very active po sa pagsagot. Despite dun sa time, again, thank you po for showing up and participating. So this review lang po is just a sneak peek po sa ating materials. And of course, yung 30-second countdown po ay patikim pa lang para sa actual exam. But I'm pretty sure na kaya nyo lahat yun. Again, thank you so much po for your time today. And I am giving the floor once again po to Miss Crizel. Thank you so much po.
Ayan. So thank you very much, Forester Irish Nicolea, for the very informative and engaging lecture. And of course, thank you to our participants for joining us and for actively participating this evening sa ating last PFLE peer review session. So it has been a meaningful month of learning with you guys, and we are hoping the same for you. Now, if you'd like to continue learning with us, you can join URC's review programs for the PFLE 2026. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code po flashed on your screens and pwede po kayong mamili sa aming online and self-paced review programs depende sa inyong learning style. Ayan. So lastly, please send us some feedback on how we can improve our program by scanning the QR code flashed on your screens. Yun lang po. Thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us in our peer review sessions. Thank you for working hard and congratulations in advance sa ating future registered professional foresters. Bye everyone. Thank you po.